How did a civilization without gunpowder, without tanks, and without radio manage to dominate 3 continents for centuries? The Romans didn't just fight with swords. They fought with organization, discipline, and fear. For hundreds of years, the Roman army was the most efficient and feared force in the ancient world. From its humble beginnings as a small city surrounded by enemies to the colossal splendor of the empire, Rome was forged in the flames of war. But what really made this war machine work? How could a legion defeat entire kingdoms, even when outnumbered? In this video, you'll discover what made the Roman army so different, so precise, and so deadly. From weapons and tactics to logistics and the use of terror as a tool of control. Forget everything you think you know about Roman soldiers. What comes next shows that they didn't just fight well, they reinvented warfare. In the beginning, the Romans copied whatever they saw working best around them. And at that time, the most respected model came from Greece. Roman armies were still in their infancy when they adopted the phalanx formations, those compact lines of soldiers advancing like a living wall, shield to shield, spear to spear. It worked well until it didn't, because there was a problem with the phalanx. It was strong but rigid as stone. On flat, predictable terrain, it was deadly. But all it took was a hillside, a forest, or a faster enemy, and it all fell apart. Rome, however, was not a civilization built to accept limitations. It was then, at the end of the Republic and the beginning of the Empire, that something extraordinary happened. The Roman legion emerged. The legion was like a living organism, flexible, coordinated, intelligent. Divided into smaller units called maniples, it could move, make space, flank the enemy, and close in like a trap. Picture this. You're on the battlefield, and instead of facing a wall, you see blocks moving like chess pieces, surrounding, retreating, attacking again, all in perfect sync. It's as if every soldier knew exactly what to do and why. With the creation of the legions, Rome didn't just change how it fought, it changed the very concept of war in antiquity. But the secret of Roman strength wasn't just in formation. It lay in the near-obsessive organization of its men. While other armies relied on bravery or luck, Rome relied on numbers, hierarchy, and almost religious discipline. This legion was divided in an almost mathematical way. First, the centuries with around 80 soldiers, and within them the smallest combat unit, the Cantaburnium, a group of just 8 to 10 men who lived, marched, and fought together. These small groups shared the same tent, the same fire, and the same fate. If one failed, they all bore the consequences. Despite this fragmentation into dozens of autonomous cells, the entire command of the legion flowed from top to bottom with brutal clarity. From the generals directly connected to the emperor to the lowest-ranking soldier in the line, all were integrated through an efficient, almost indestructible chain of command. This rigid and efficient command structure was only possible thanks to a deep transformation that came with time, a change that started at the base with the very profile of the soldiers. Because before the legion became this relentless machine, it was made up of ordinary men, peasants, farmers, men pulled from their lands, summoned to fight when the city needed them. But everything changed with a single name: Augustus. At the end of the 1st century BC, while the Roman world was still echoing with civil wars and the memory of Caesar was fresh in the air, Augustus realized a brutal truth. The future of the empire couldn't depend on farmers with improvised swords. He needed permanent warriors, professionals of war. That's when a silent but devastating revolution was born. Rome created the first permanent army in its history. No longer rushed peasants, but paid soldiers, trained, equipped, and prepared for war as a lifelong career. Men who lived to fight and fought to live. They received salaries, retirement, benefits, and above all, respect. The legionary uniform became a symbol of status and power. With this new model, the Roman soldier became something the ancient world had never seen before: a lethal, disciplined, and constant instrument of war. Imagine the impact of that. Rome no longer had to wait for spring to recruit, no longer had to pray for the loyalty of volunteers. It had, available every day of the year, tens of thousands of warriors ready to march. And unlike many of its enemies, the Romans didn't enter battle with a single static formation. They read the terrain and adapted to it. Nothing was fixed. Everything was flexible. They could rotate front lines with the rear without disrupting the whole. They could retreat in blocks like a wave, pulling back only to gain strength and surge forward with more force. And when they advanced, it was like a choreographed dance, only made of steel, sweat, and blood. This ability to adapt meant that enemies never knew what to expect. They believed they were winning, and suddenly, they were surrounded by maniples that had split off and now closed in. Rome fought with its body, but it won with its mind. This tactical intelligence wasn't limited to legionary formations. Rome knew that to dominate all types of enemies and terrains, it needed much more than swords and shields. That's why it began incorporating a variety of specialized forces, each with unique skills that further expanded the army's reach and versatility. Behind every shield line, there was a less visible but equally decisive mechanism. The auxiliaries, foreign soldiers, swift cavalrymen, deadly archers, silent spearmen. Auxiliaries were soldiers recruited from the regions conquered by Rome. They were archers from Syria, cavalrymen from Gaul, Germanic spearmen, Numidian warriors from North Africa. Men who weren't Roman citizens, but who earned citizenship after years of military service. And why did Rome use these men? Because every people had a specific skill, and Rome knew how to take advantage of it. Eastern archers offered long-range attack power. Light cavalry could flank the enemy with speed. Spearmen and scouts knew the terrain where Rome marched. These soldiers complemented the legions, performing tasks that required agility, specialization, or high risk. They were also used to guard the flanks, open routes, pursue fleeing enemies, and set up ambushes. With the auxiliaries in action, legionaries could focus on the decisive moments of battle. Over time, these troops became so important that they replaced the old peasant infantry, allowing the Roman army to become even more professional and efficient. And with a permanent and highly trained army at its disposal, Rome could focus on perfecting another crucial element: the tools of war. After all, for a soldier who lived to fight, weapons had to be as direct and efficient as he was. Let's start with the gladius. Short, direct, merciless. At less than 60 centimeters, it wasn't made for fancy duels or dramatic swings. It was made to kill. In the middle of the push and shove of hand-to-hand combat, with shields colliding and screams tearing through the air, the gladius allowed for short, quick strikes. It was an extension of the body, a scalpel in trained hands. And a legionary knew a single well-placed blow was enough. But even before the fighting began, the pilum had already done its part. The pilum wasn't just any spear. Its soft iron shaft caused the tip to bend on impact with a shield or armor, making the projectile useless to be thrown back. And if it lodged into a shield, the weight of the pilum would completely throw the enemy soldier off balance, forcing him to abandon his only protection. It was a weapon designed to disarm before killing, and that, on the battlefield, was a devastating blow. On top of that, the simple act of seeing a rain of pilum falling onto enemy lines created panic and disorder before hand-to-hand combat even began. It was military engineering applied to survival. But Rome's true genius showed itself before the fighting even started. While other armies settled for sleeping on the cold ground, improvising shelter with whatever they had on hand, the Romans set up real fortified camps at every stop. And it wasn't just a random tent in the middle of nowhere, it was a miniature empire. Each legion was a mobile city, and every time they stopped to camp, they built a fortress, literally. Straight lines, wooden walls, watchtowers, defensive trenches, all built in a matter of hours, all planned down to the last detail. The Roman camp was strategy itself. A command center, a supply depot, a sanctuary of discipline. Food, tools, weapons, horses, mobile forges, nothing was left to chance. Engineers marched with the troops, as did builders and supply officers. If they had to cross a river, they built a bridge. If the terrain was swampy, they drained it. If a city needed to fall, they built siege machines from scratch, right there on the spot. Rome didn't just go to war, settled into it. And all of this had a single purpose: to ensure that wherever the legion was, it could be self-sufficient. The Roman legion could sustain itself, and because of that, it could go farther than any other army of its time. In the end, Rome changed the concept of war. It abandoned improvisation and created a professional, disciplined, and highly efficient military system. From troop organization to the strategic use of fear, through flawless logistics and flexible formations, the Romans left no room for chance. Everything was planned. Everything was executed with precision. What was once a chaotic mass of warriors became a modern army. And that model spread. It influenced kingdoms, empires, and is still present today in military structures around the world. Now I want to know your opinion. If you could choose an army from any era to fight by your side, would you choose the Romans? Which part of the Roman military system impressed you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you like this story and want to see more epic content like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. In the next video on screen, we'll reveal the secrets of what a Roman soldier carried in his backpack.